Jake Morrison stood at the window of Luna Station and watched the last alien ship disappear into the darkness. The ship was small and silver, moving fast away from Earth's moon. Behind it, the Great Barrier hummed with deadly energy. No ship could pass through it. No message could cross it. Earth was alone. 300 years ago, the Galactic Council had made their choice. Humans were too dangerous, too wild, too scary for the peaceful galaxy they wanted to build. After the Third Sector War, where human soldiers had fought with a fury that shocked even warrior races, the Council voted. Earth would be cut off from the rest of the galaxy forever. Jake remembered the stories his grandfather told him. Stories of human ships flying between the stars, trading with dozens of alien races. Stories of human colonies on distant worlds, building new homes under foreign suns. All of that was gone now. The barrier made sure of it. The Council had built the barrier to keep humans in. Giant weapons platforms floated in space around Earth's solar system. Any ship that tried to leave would be destroyed. Any ship that tried to enter would meet the same fate. The galaxy had decided that humans were a problem that needed to be contained, but the galaxy had made a mistake. They thought cutting humans off would make them weak. They thought isolation would break their spirit. They were wrong. Captain Lisa Parker was one of the first to understand this. When the barrier went up, she was commanding a mining ship near Jupiter. Instead of giving up, she started exploring. Every asteroid, every moon, every piece of rock floating in space became important. If humans were trapped in their own solar system, then they would learn everything about it. Lisa's ships found rare metals on moons that nobody had bothered to check before. They discovered ice deposits that could provide water for generations. They mapped every safe route through the asteroid fields. Within 50 years, humans knew their solar system better than any race in the galaxy knew theirs. But it was not just about resources. General Ryan Brooks saw something else that needed to be done. The Council had feared human warriors, but what happened when those warriors got old and died? What happened when children grew up never knowing how to fight? Ryan built the underground academies. Deep inside Earth's mountains and on hidden bases throughout the solar system, human children learned the old ways. They studied the battles that had made aliens so afraid. They practiced tactics that had won impossible victories. They learned why humans were different from every other race in the galaxy, that the academies taught more than fighting. They taught students about honor, about protecting those who could not protect themselves, about making hard choices when everything was at stake. The teachers made sure each student understood that being a warrior meant knowing when to fight and when to show mercy. Maria Santos had perhaps the loneliest job of all. She worked at Kepler Station, a small base hidden in the outer solar system. Her job was to listen. Day after day, year after year, she monitored communications from the galaxy. Beyond the barrier, she heard about the peace that had settled over the galaxy after humans were removed. She heard about trade agreements between races that had been enemies for centuries. She heard about scientific discoveries and cultural exchanges. The galaxy was proud of what they had built without humans. But Maria also heard other things. She heard about pirates that the peaceful races could not stop. She heard about conflicts that nobody knew how to end because nobody remembered how to fight properly. She heard about problems that were growing while the galaxy celebrated its peaceful success. The generations that came after the barrier learned to live with their situation. Children grew up knowing they were cut off from the stars, but they did not grow up defeated. Instead, they grew up determined. If the galaxy did not want them, then humans would become something the galaxy could not ignore. Jake's generation built new types of ships. Ships that could survive in the dangerous spaces between planets. Ships that could repair themselves when far from any base. Ships that could fight if they needed to, but were built for exploration and survival. They also built new types of weapons. Not weapons meant to conquer others, but weapons meant to protect what was theirs. The humans trapped inside the barrier knew that someday something might come for them. When that day arrived, they would be ready. But the most important thing they built was unity. Before the barrier, humans had been scattered across many worlds, divided by distance and different goals. Now, trapped together, they became something new. They became a people with a single purpose: to survive, to grow stronger, and to prove that the galaxy had been wrong about them. 300 years passed. The galaxy forgot about the humans behind the barrier. Trade routes went around Earth's solar system. Maps were redrawn as if humans had never existed. To most aliens, Earth became just another dead system to avoid. They had no idea what was growing in that forgotten corner of space. They did not know about the ships being built in hidden shipyards. They did not know about the soldiers training in secret bases. They did not know about the technologies being developed by people who had nothing to lose and everything to prove. The galaxy thought they had solved the human problem by locking humans away. Soon, they would learn that they had actually created something much more dangerous. Humans with 3 centuries to prepare for whatever came next. The first sign of trouble came from the edge of the galaxy. Admiral Ziethen of the Altarian Republic was reading routine reports when the message arrived. The mining colony on Viridian Prime had gone silent. No big deal, he thought. Communication. Equipment broke down all the time. 3 days later, a patrol ship reached Viridian Prime. What they found made no sense. The planet was still there, but it looked wrong. The surface was covered in strange, pulsing growths. The cities were gone. The people were gone. Everything was gone except for those awful growths that seemed to breathe. The patrol ship tried to land and investigate. That was a mistake. Something erupted from the planet's surface and swallowed the ship whole. The last transmission was a scream. More ships went missing. Entire systems stopped responding to calls. The Council sent investigation fleets, but they found the same thing every time. Planets covered in alien growths and no signs of the people who used to live there. Dr. Elena Rodriguez sat in her hidden monitoring station beyond Earth's barrier and watched the galactic communication networks light up with panic. She had been doing Maria Santos's old job for 20 years now, listening to the galaxy that had forgotten about humans. Usually the messages were boring. Trade disputes, diplomatic. Ceremonies, scientific conferences, not anymore. Now the networks buzzed with fear. Elena listened to military reports describing ships that looked like they were grown instead of built. She heard scientists trying to explain creatures that seemed to be part machine and part living tissue. She read intelligence reports about an enemy that turned entire planets into breeding grounds. The enemy called themselves the Veltar, though nobody knew if that was really their name or just a sound their hive mind made. They traveled in bioships that looked like giant insects crossed with spacecraft. These ships could repair themselves by eating metal and organic matter. They could grow new weapons by absorbing the technology of ships they destroyed. But the worst part was what they did to people. The Veltar did not just kill their enemies. They captured them and connected them to their hive mind. Every person they took made the Veltar smarter and stronger. Every world they conquered gave them more resources to build more bioships. Admiral Pete then watched his 4th Fleet die in the Battle of Proxima Station. His ships had the best shields and weapons in the galaxy. They were crewed by professional soldiers from a dozen different races. None of it mattered. The Veltar bioships simply absorbed the energy from their weapons and grew larger. Their bioweapons dissolved the strongest armor like it was made of paper. Within minutes, ships that had taken years to build were nothing but expanding clouds of organic matter. The bioships fed on the wreckage and immediately began growing. new attack forms. By the time the battle was over, the Veltar fleet was twice as large as when it started. The survivors brought back horrifying reports. They described Veltar creatures that could think and adapt in the middle of battle. They talked about bioships that learned from every attack and became immune to the same tactic if it was tried twice. They whispered about the screams that came from captured crew members as they were connected to the hive mind. Council Coordinator Velshan called emergency sessions every day, but nobody had answers. The peaceful galaxy that had existed for 3 centuries was not ready for this kind of war. Their military forces were designed for keeping order, not fighting for survival. Their weapons were built to disable and capture, not destroy completely. The Trekinus Collective tried their advanced energy shields. The Veltar simply absorbed the energy and used it to power new weapons. The Cretalian Empire sent their best warriors. The bioships turned the warriors' own aggression against them, using captured Cretalian soldiers to create new types of combat forms. Elena watched system after system fall. The Veltar moved like a plague across the galaxy, consuming everything in their path. They did not negotiate. They did not make demands. They simply arrived, fed, and moved on to the next target. The refugee fleets started arriving at the galactic core, millions of beings from dozens of races, all fleeing the same enemy. They brought stories that got worse each time. The Veltar were not just conquering worlds, they were changing them. Planets that had supported life for millions of years were being turned into alien landscapes that only the bioships could survive in. Some refugees talked about resistance movements on conquered worlds, small groups of survivors hiding in caves, and ruins trying to fight back with whatever weapons they could find. But the reports always ended the same way. The bioships found them eventually, and then there was silence. In the deep archives beneath the council building, historiographer Klanik made a discovery that would change everything. He was looking through old military records, trying to find some historical example of how to fight an enemy like the Veltar. That was when he found the files from the Third Sector War. The files had been sealed for 3 centuries. They contained detailed reports of human military tactics during the war that had led to their exile. Klanek read about strategies that had shocked the galaxy, humans who fought without rules, who used psychological warfare, who refused to surrender even when defeat was certain. He read about human soldiers who had turned entire battlefields into traps, about human commanders who had sacrificed their own ships to destroy enemy fleets, about human tactics that were so savage and unpredictable that even the warrior races had demanded they be stopped. But as Klanek read deeper, he began to understand something the Council had missed 3 centuries ago. The humans had not been fighting for conquest or glory. They had been fighting for survival. Every brutal tactic, every shocking strategy had been designed with one goal: to protect human colonies from enemies who would show no mercy. The files described how humans had faced impossible odds and still found ways to win. They talked about human creativity in battle, their ability to adapt and improvise when their original plans failed. They showed how humans could fight like savages when they needed to, but still choose mercy when the battle was won. Klanek brought his discovery to Council Coordinator Velshan. The 2 of them sat in the secure chamber beneath the Council building, reading reports that had been classified for longer than most races could remember. Finally, Velshan spoke the words that nobody wanted to hear. We need them. The galaxy that had exiled humans for being too dangerous now faced an enemy that their peaceful civilization could not defeat. The warriors they had locked away might be the only hope for survival. But first, someone would have to cross the barrier that had kept humans isolated for 300 years. Someone would have to face the people the galaxy had abandoned and ask for their help. It would be the most dangerous diplomatic mission in galactic history. Ambassador Yeldana was young for her species, barely 200 years old. Most Altarians her age spent their time studying art or philosophy. Instead, she volunteered for what everyone expected to be a suicide mission, making contact with the humans. The council had spent weeks debating who should go. Experienced diplomats refused the assignment. Military officers claimed it was impossible. Senior ambassadors argued that humans would probably kill any messenger on sight. But Yeldana had studied the old records differently than the others. She had read about human culture before the exile. She knew that humans valued courage and direct communication. She also knew that humans understood desperation. If anyone could convince them to help, it would be someone who approached them honestly, without tricks or manipulation. The journey to the barrier took 3 days. Yeldana's ship was small and fast, designed to outrun pursuit rather than fight. She hoped that would make it less threatening to the human defense systems. As they approached the edge of human space, her pilot began picking up strange energy readings. Those are not the same defensive platforms from 300 years ago, her pilot warned. These are something new. Captain Nick Thompson was conducting his usual patrol near the barrier when his sensors detected something impossible, a council ship approaching human space. For a moment, he thought his equipment was broken. No alien ship had come near the barrier in over a century. Nick commanded the patrol ship Freedom's Edge. His crew was young, but well-trained, descendants of the generation that had built humanity's new fleet. They knew their history. They knew why the barrier existed. And they knew that any alien ship out here probably meant trouble. But as the alien ship got closer, Nick noticed something strange. It was broadcasting old human communication codes, signals that had not been used since before the exile. More importantly, it was flying slowly, with its weapons powered down. These were not the actions of an attacking force. "This is Captain Nick Thompson of the Earth Defense Force," he broadcast on the old diplomatic frequencies. "Alien vessel, state your purpose." The response came immediately. "This is Ambassador Yeldana of the Galactic Council. I request permission to speak with your leaders. We need your help." Nick almost laughed. After 3 centuries of isolation, the Council wanted to talk? But the situation was too strange to ignore. He ordered his ship to escort the alien vessel to Titan Command, maintaining a safe distance and keeping weapons ready. General Kate Sullivan received the news while reviewing training reports at Titan Command. She was the current head of Earth's military forces, a position that had grown more important as humans developed new technologies and strategies during their isolation. Kate had grown up hearing stories about the galaxy that had rejected humanity. Her grandparents had lived through the exile, and they had taught her never to trust alien promises. But they had also taught her that humans had a duty to protect innocent life, even if those lives belonged to people who had wronged them. When Ambassador Yeldana's message was delivered to Titan Command, Kate listened to it 3 times before, calling an emergency meeting. The message was simple but shocking. The galaxy was under attack by an enemy they could not defeat, and they were asking humans for help. Admiral Ben Carter arrived at the underground meeting room first. He was Kate's senior advisor, an old man who remembered when humans still traded with other races. Behind him came Colonel Tracy Adams, a fierce woman who had spent her career preparing for the day when aliens might try to invade. Human Space. Major Chris Lopez was the youngest person in the room, but he was also the most knowledgeable about galactic politics. He had spent years studying the transmissions that Earth's monitoring stations intercepted. He knew about the Council's current military capabilities and their recent failures against the Veltar. "They abandoned us," Tracy said immediately. "Let them solve their own problems." "The Veltar are not just their problem," Chris argued. "If they consume the entire galaxy, They will eventually come for us too. Ben nodded slowly. Our intelligence. Reports suggest that the Veltar turn everything they conquer into breeding grounds. If they win, there will be nothing left of galactic civilization. Kate studied the faces around the table. These were the people who had helped her prepare humanity for 3 centuries of isolation. They had built the ships, trained the soldiers, and developed the technologies that kept Earth safe. Now they had to decide whether to use those preparations to help the people who had exiled them. What do we know about this Ambassador Yeldana? Kate asked. Chris pulled up a file on his tablet. Young, inexperienced, but she has a reputation for honesty. Her family lost members in the Veltar attacks. This is personal for her. And what do we know about the Veltar? Kate continued. Bioships, hive mind. They absorb technology and use it against their enemies, Ben replied. From what we can tell, the Council's standard tactics are completely ineffective. Tracy leaned forward. So they want us to fight their war for them? No, said a new voice from the doorway. Commander Amy Foster stepped into the room, carrying a data pad with intelligence reports. They want us to teach them how to win. Amy was Kate's strategic advisor, a woman who understood both military tactics and political implications. She had been analyzing the galactic situation for months, watching the Veltar advance and the Council's responses. Look at their pattern of requests, Amy continued, sitting down at the table. They are not asking us to send fleets to defend their worlds. They are asking for military advisors, tactical experts, people who can teach them how to fight differently. Kate considered this. They want to learn our way of war? They want to learn our way of survival, Amy corrected. The Council has lived in peace for so long that they have forgotten how to face a real threat. They need people who never forgot. The debate continued for hours. Tracy argued that helping the Council would only lead to humanity being used and discarded again. Chris pointed out that the Veltar represented a threat to all life in the galaxy, including human life. Ben worried about whether humanity was strong enough to make a difference. But it was. Amy who asked the question that changed everything. What if this is our chance to show them who we really are? Kate looked around the table. Explain. 4 centuries, the galaxy has remembered us as monsters, Amy said. They think we are savage, uncontrollable, too dangerous for civilized space. What if we could show them that we are actually protectors? What if we could prove that everything they feared about us is exactly what they need? The room fell silent. Finally, Kate spoke. We help them, but we do it our way, with our people in command positions. And we make it clear that this is not about rejoining their civilization. This is about saving all life in the galaxy. 2 days later, Ambassador Yeldana received humanity's response. It was delivered by Kate herself, speaking from the bridge of the Retribution, humanity's most advanced warship. Ambassador, we will help you fight the Veltar, Kate said. But understand this, we are not doing this to earn your forgiveness or to rejoin your council. We are doing this because it is the right thing to do. Our people will fight alongside yours, but they will fight as humans, using human tactics and human strategies. If that is acceptable to your council, then we have an agreement. Yeldana's response was immediate. General Sullivan, my people are dying. We will accept any help you can give us, in any form you choose to give it. And so, after 3 centuries of isolation, humanity prepared to return to the galaxy. Not as the monsters the Council remembered, but as the warriors the galaxy desperately needed. The forgotten warriors were about to rise again. The first human ship to cross the barrier in 3 centuries was the UE's Retribution. Captain Steve Morgan stood on the bridge and watched the ancient defensive platform's power down as his ship passed through. Behind him, a fleet of vessels unlike Anything in the galactic database followed information. The ships were black as space itself, built with technologies developed during humanity's isolation. They were smaller than Council warships, but faster and more maneuverable. More importantly, they were designed by people who understood that survival meant being ready for anything. Lieutenant Commander Rachel Webb monitored communications as panicked. Council forces tried to figure out what they were seeing. The alien. Fleets had expected human ships to look like the old designs from 3 centuries ago. Instead, they found vessels that seemed to bend light around them, making them hard to target and harder to track. Council Command is requesting our fleet specifications, Rachel reported. Steve smiled grimly. Tell them they will see what our ships can do when the fighting starts. The human fleet's destination was the Altarian border system, where the Vel-Tar had established a forward base on the ruins of 3 conquered worlds. Council forces had tried to retake the system twice and failed both times. Now it would be humanity's first test against their new enemy. Admiral Laver White commanded the human fleet from her flagship, the UEC Defiance. She had spent her entire career preparing for battles that might never come. During the isolation years, human strategists had studied every piece of intelligence they could gather about potential enemies. They had developed tactics for fighting bioships, hive minds, and adaptive technologies. Now those preparations would be put to the test. The Vel-Tar bioships detected the approaching human fleet when it was still 2 days away from the target system. The alien hive mind was curious about these new ships. Previous enemies had approached in standard military formations, using predictable tactics. The humans were doing something different. Instead of advancing in a direct line, the human ships split into dozens of small groups. Each group took a different route toward the target, moving through asteroid fields and around planetary gravity wells. To the Vel-Tar, it looked like chaos. To the humans, it was carefully planned confusion. Colonel Dan Price commanded the assault troops aboard the heavy cruiser Vengeance. His Marines were equipped with weapons and armor specifically designed for fighting inside bioships. Where Council forces used energy weapons that could be absorbed and redirected, the humans brought kinetic weapons, explosives, and chemical compounds that biological systems could not easily adapt to. But more importantly, Dan's troops were trained in the human way of war. They did not follow rigid battle plans that could be predicted and countered. Instead, they were taught to think, adapt, and improvise. Every Marine was a problem solver, as well as a fighter. The first engagement began when a group of Vel-Tar bioships moved to intercept what appeared to be a small human scouting force. The aliens expected an easy victory. 3 massive bioships against 5 small human vessels should have been no contest. The human ships immediately did something unexpected. They scattered. Instead of forming a defensive line or trying to retreat, each ship went in a different direction. The bioships, used to enemies that fought in formations, did not know which target to prioritize. That moment of confusion was all the humans needed. The scouting force was actually a specialized attack unit commanded by Captain Lisa Parker, one of the most experienced human officers. Her ships carried experimental weapons designed to disrupt biological systems. The first weapon was sonic, high-frequency sound waves that could interfere with the neural connections that controlled bioship functions. The second was viral, computer, programs designed to confuse the digital components that the Vel-Tar had absorbed from previous victims. The third was chemical, compounds that would poison the organic parts of bioship hulls. But the most effective weapon was psychological. As the bioships struggled to deal with these new attack forms, the human ships began broadcasting recordings. Not military communications or propaganda, but something far more disturbing. The screams and pleas of the bioships' previous victims. The Vel-Tar hive mind had absorbed millions of beings from conquered worlds. All of their memories, their fears, their final moments were part of the collective consciousness. By broadcasting those memories back at them, the humans forced the hive mind to relive every atrocity it had committed. For the first time in their expansion across the galaxy, the Veltar bioships hesitated. The hive mind, overwhelmed by its own memories of pain and terror, could not focus on controlling its ships effectively. In that moment of weakness, the human attack began. Lisa's ships launched kinetic missiles filled with metallic dust. When the missiles struck the bioships, they created clouds of metal particles that interfered with the aliens' ability to absorb energy. Follow-up strikes used explosive charges that created internal damage the bioships could not quickly repair. The real shock came when human boarding pods launched from concealed positions. The pods were designed to penetrate bioship hulls and deliver assault teams directly into the aliens' most vital areas. Council forces had never attempted boarding actions because bioships were considered too dangerous to enter. Dan Price led the first boarding assault personally. His Marines blasted through the bioship's outer hull and found themselves inside a living nightmare. The corridors were made of organic material that pulsed like arteries. The walls secreted acidic compounds designed to dissolve intruders. Strange growths tried to entangle the soldiers as they moved deeper into the ship. The Marines dealt with each obstacle using weapons the Veltar had never encountered. Flamethrowers burned through organic barriers. Chemical sprays neutralized. Acid attacks. Explosive charges destroyed the neural nodes that controlled ship functions. Most importantly, the Marines moved fast and unpredictably, never staying in one place long enough for the bioship to adapt to their presence. Within an hour, the first bioship was dead. Its organic systems had been so damaged that the hive mind could no longer control it. The massive vessel drifted helplessly as its biological components began to decay. The other two bioships tried to retreat, but the human fleet had anticipated this. Ships that had appeared to be fleeing earlier now revealed themselves to be part of a carefully planned trap. The bioships found themselves surrounded by human vessels that attacked from all directions. But what happened next surprised everyone, including the humans. Instead of destroying the remaining bioships, Admiral Lavra ordered them to be disabled and boarded. Her troops fought their way to the alien vessels, command centers, and began attempting something unprecedented: communication with captured VEL *Tardot. The first successful contact came when Dr. Elena Rodriguez, who had left her monitoring station to join the fleet as a xenobiologist, managed to establish a link with a wounded Veltar organism. What she discovered changed everything. The Veltar were not evil conquerors driven by hatred or greed. They were refugees fleeing something even worse in the dark spaces between galaxies. Their aggressive expansion was motivated by desperate hunger and primal fear. They consumed other civilizations, not because they wanted to, but because they did not know any other way to survive. This discovery led to the most shocking moment of the battle. When the second bioship was captured, the human assault teams found thousands of beings from various species connected to the alien hive mind. Previous rescue attempts had failed because Council forces assumed these people were dead or permanently lost. The humans had brought medical specialists and xenobiologists specifically to deal with this situation. They began carefully disconnecting captured beings from the hive mind and providing immediate medical treatment. Many of the rescued people had been connected to the Veltar for months or even years, but they were still alive and could be saved. Rachel Webb broadcast the rescue operations to the entire galactic communication network. Council forces watching from safe distances saw human soldiers risking their lives to save aliens who had been written off as casualties. They saw human medics providing care to species they had never encountered before. They saw human officers treating rescued Veltar with the same medical attention given to other survivors. The battle ended with a result no one had expected. The human fleet had not just defeated the Veltar attack force, they had captured it intact and begun the process of communication and rescue. For the first time since the invasion began, the galaxy had hoped that this war could end with something other than total destruction. But more importantly, the galaxy began to see humanity in a new light. The savage humans had shown mercy to an enemy that had shown none to others. The dangerous humans had risked everything to save lives rather than simply take them. The warriors the Council had feared were proving to be the protectors the Nyas. Galaxy needed Dot. The forgotten warriors had not just risen again. They had risen as something greater than anyone had imagined. 6 months after the first human ships crossed the barrier, the war began to turn. General Matt Bailey stood in the command center of New Geneva Station, watching reports flow in from battles across the galaxy. Human tactics, combined with Council resources and alien technologies, were creating a fighting force the Veltar could not understand. The station itself was a symbol of the new cooperation. Built in just 4 months using human engineering and Council resources, it served as the joint command center for the combined fleets. Species that had feared humans for centuries now worked alongside them, planning strategies and sharing intelligence. The cooperation had not been easy at first. Council officers were used to careful, measured approaches to warfare. They planned extensively, followed protocols, and tried to minimize casualties on both sides. Human officers operated differently. They planned quickly, adapted constantly, and focused on winning rather than following rules. But gradually, the two approaches began to merge into something more effective than either could achieve alone. Council technology provided the resources and defensive capabilities. Human tactics provided the creativity and aggressive spirit needed to fight an adaptive enemy. Commander Kelly Turner was preparing for what everyone hoped would be the final battle. Intelligence reports suggested that the main Veltar force was gathering in their home system, a region of space so far from galactic civilization that no exploration ship had ever reached it. The bioships were consolidating their forces for either a massive counterattack or a strategic retreat to even more distant regions. Dot Kelly commanded the largest combined fleet in galactic history. Human ships flew alongside Altarian cruisers, Trekinus science vessels, and Cretalian war barges. The crews were mixed as well, with human officers serving on alien ships and alien specialists working aboard human vessels. Dr. Alex Peterson had made the discovery that changed how everyone understood the Veltar. His xenobiology team had been studying captured bioships and their crews for months, learning how the hive mind operated and what drove their behavior. The findings had shocked the galaxy. The Veltar were not monsters. They were not evil. They were terrified refugees fleeing something so horrible that they could not even think about it directly. In the dark spaces between galaxies, something existed that made the bioship's aggressive expansion look like a desperate escape attempt. Alex's team discovered that the Veltar hive mind contained fragments of memory from their original homeworld, scattered images of a beautiful planet with crystalline cities and peaceful inhabitants. Then came the darkness, something that consumed not just life and matter, but space itself. The Veltar had fled, taking whatever technology and knowledge they could carry. But their escape had changed them. The trauma of losing everything had damaged their collective consciousness. They could not remember how to live peacefully because peace reminded them of what they had lost. They consumed other civilizations not out of hatred, but because it was the only way they knew to grow strong enough to keep running. This understanding led to a new strategy. Instead of trying to destroy the Veltar completely, the combined fleet would attempt something unprecedented: negotiation backed by superior force. They would offer the bioships what they really wanted: safety and a place to rebuild in exchange for ending their attacks on galactic civilization. Ambassador Yeldana, who had survived the war by serving on human ships, supported this approach. She had seen how humans fought, but she had also seen how they treated prisoners and refugees. Even in the heat of battle, human soldiers risked their lives to save Veltar, who could be rescued from the hive mind. The final battle began when the combined fleet reached the Veltar home system. What they found there was both magnificent and terrifying. Hundreds of bioships orbited an artificial construct the size of a small moon. The construct was part machine, part living tissue, and entirely alien. It pulsed with energy that suggested it was some kind of massive brain or control center. Kelly's fleet took positions throughout the system, but they did not immediately attack. Instead, they began broadcasting the message that Dr. Alex's team had prepared. The message was transmitted in the biochemical language that the Veltar used for internal communication, and it contained an offer that no one had ever made to them before. "We know you are afraid," the message said. "We know you are running from something terrible. We know you have been hurt, and that you hurt others because you do not know how to stop being afraid. We offer you something different. We offer you a home. We offer you safety. We offer you the chance to remember who you were before the fear took hold." The response from the bioships was immediate and chaotic. Some vessels moved to attack positions, ready to fight to the end. Others began broadcasting confused signals, as if the hive mind was arguing with itself. A few ships actually powered down their weapons and began sending what appeared to be questions. The battle that followed was unlike any in galactic history. Part of the Veltar force fought with the same desperate fury they had always shown. Human and council ships engaged them using all the tactics that had been developed over the past 6 months. But other bioships hung back, seeming to wait for the outcome. Captain Steve Morgan led a boarding assault on the massive construct at the center of the system. His teams fought through organic corridors filled with defensive systems, but they also encountered something unexpected: Veltar who did not fight back. These beings seemed to be watching the humans, trying to understand their intentions. When Steve's team reached what appeared to be the construct's central chamber, they found the source of the Veltar's terror. Deep inside the biomechanical brain, Alex Peterson's instruments detected traces of the darkness the aliens were fleeing. Not the thing itself, but echoes of its presence. Something so alien and destructive that even thinking about it caused damage to conscious minds. But the humans had an advantage the Veltar did not expect. 3 centuries of isolation had taught humanity how to survive trauma and loss. Human minds were structured differently than most aliens, more resilient to psychological damage. Where other species might be driven mad by contact with such darkness, humans could face it and remain functional. Steve made a decision that would be remembered for millennia. Instead of trying to destroy the construct, he ordered his teams to help repair the damage that the darkness had caused to the Veltar collective consciousness. Human technicians worked alongside Veltar bioengineers to rebuild neural pathways and restore damaged memories. The effect was immediate and dramatic. As the hive mind began to heal, the bioships throughout the system stopped fighting. The restored memories allowed the Veltar to remember who they had been before their trauma. A peaceful species of artists and philosophers who had never wanted to hurt anyone. Kelly Turner's voice carried across the communication networks as she broadcast to the entire galaxy. To any Veltar survivors, the war is over. You are not our enemies. You are refugees who lost their way. We offer you sanctuary, protection, and the chance to heal. That is what civilization means. The aftermath of the war brought revelations that reshaped galactic politics. Council Coordinator Velshan delivered a speech to the Emergency Assembly that acknowledged 3 centuries of mistakes. Humanity had not been exiled for being monsters. They had been exiled for being exactly what the galaxy needed, but was too afraid to accept. "We cast out humanity, believing them too dangerous for peace," Velshon said. "We now understand they were too necessary for war. They are not monsters who sometimes choose mercy. They are guardians who understand that sometimes mercy requires monstrous strength." The Veltar were given territories in the Outer Rim, far from inhabited systems, but rich in resources they could use to rebuild their civilization. Human advisors worked with them to develop non-aggressive technologies and to heal the psychological damage that had driven their expansion. Many bioships were converted into exploration vessels, allowing the Veltar to search for others of their kind who might still be fleeing the darkness. But perhaps the most important change was in how the galaxy viewed humanity. The barrier around Earth was dismantled not with celebration, but with ceremony. Representatives from every council species attended as human ships were officially welcomed back into galactic space. Yet, humanity did not simply rejoin the civilization that had exiled them. They became something new, the galaxy's guardians. Human fleets patrolled the Outer Rim, watching for threats that peaceful civilizations could not handle. Human academies trained soldiers from dozens of species in the arts of war and peace. Human diplomats worked to prevent conflicts before they could escalate into wars. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, now the head of the new Xenological Research Institute, continued her work monitoring the dark spaces beyond the galaxy. The thing that had destroyed the Veltar homeworld was still out there, and other refugee species might be fleeing its influence. When that time came, the galaxy would be ready. Jake Morrison, now an old man, stood once again at the observation deck of Luna Station. But this time, he was not watching alien ships leave. He was watching them arrive. Traders, diplomats, students, and refugees, all coming to Earth to learn from the people who had been forgotten for 3 centuries. The galaxy had Finnell.